Why do so many people care about the ocean, but they don't feel connected to ocean conservation? There's a serious disconnect between ocean conservation and the people we want to help conserve the ocean. We're going to be talking about the plastic straw campaign, Ocean Ramsey's upcoming Netflix documentary, and how science communication gaps can really play a better role in filling in people for the ocean, inspire them to help protect the ocean. On this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast, let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. If you want to take action, you can join The Undertow. It's a community that I'm building with two co-founders. We are here to build a community for the ocean, to protect the ocean. No algorithms, nothing like no blocking or no trying to put one over the other. We are showing you the true wave makers, people who are trying to do well for the ocean, inspire you to protect the ocean as well, and guide you to buying products and services that are good for the ocean and good for the planet. All you have to do is go to speakupforblue.com/join the undertow. That's speakupforblue.com/join the undertow. Now, you probably love the ocean. If I asked you, hey, do you love the ocean? You're probably going to say, yeah, of course I do. Why wouldn't I love the ocean? Some people love it. Most people I talk to love it. A lot of times when I introduce myself and they say, what do you do, Andrew? I say, I'm a marine biologist or a marine ecologist or a marine scientist, ocean conservationist. People are like, I love the ocean. At one time when I was a kid, I wanted to be a marine biologist. They get that all the time. So people love the ocean. When you go away by the lakes, or you go away by an ocean and you get to be on a beach and you get to enjoy the ocean. So we know you love the ocean. But why is it so hard to connect to ocean conservation? Why is it so hard to take that action? And there's really three things that I want to go to today to really talk about how we are not very well connected with ocean conservation, and certain campaigns have missed the point, and what scientists and ocean conservationists need to do to really understand how people tick. The first thing is the plastic straw campaign. It is a symbol over substance. The recap is really, there was a viral video that went around. There were some scientists, friends of mine, that I actually met after the video came out. They pulled a straw out of a sea turtle's nose. That video went viral. Like, when I mean viral, I mean the ultimate viral, millions upon millions of views, tens of millions, maybe even 100 million by this time. And people were concerned. They were generally like, holy cow, this plastic straw ended up in this olive Ridley endangered sea turtle. How the heck does that happen? I remember when I interviewed Dr. Nathan Robinson, he was like, this has got to be 1,000,000 to 1. Like, I have no idea what the odds are of doing that. 4 months later, he calls me up and he's like, hey, Andrew, guess what? I actually found a plastic fork in an olive Ridley sea turtle nose. Insane. Like, the amount of plastic that can harm these particular species of turtle with plastic forks getting stuck in their nose is unimaginable at this point. Like, we really don't know. So once we saw that, we saw a huge campaign, like all around the world, of plastic straws. It became the symbol of the decreased marine plastics in the ocean, right? That was the big thing. It was a huge, huge global movement. I mean, it was easy to understand. It was really easy. It's like, straws are bad because it ends up in sea turtles' nose, and you don't want to have sea turtles have straws up their nose. So we need to ban the plastic straws. That was the big thing, is ban the straw, ban the plastic straw. Easy to understand. It's accessible because there were alternatives that were creative. There was a bit of debate between different communities. So, for instance, there were certain communities who still need plastic straws because of some sort of disability that they may have, and they require plastic straws to have. Obviously, that's an exception to the rule, but for the most people, don't need plastic straws. We really don't need it. And then, of course, it sparked an emotional reaction later on. So as this campaign built, companies were created to just sell plastic straws. They eventually dove into other different types of eco-friendly products like bamboo utensils or bamboo straws, metal straws, all these different types, paper straws, all these different types. And then, of course, that movement built where restaurants started to change to paper straws. And then people started to resent paper straws. They said it would blow up. They said it would fall apart after a while and so forth. But they were recyclable. They could break down a little easier for the most part if they were created properly. And it was a simple solution, but people really didn't like it. The thing is, it focused on an individual behavior change with minimal impact on ocean plastic. And this is the problem, is people focus so much on plastic straws, instead of using it as the gateway plastic, as I like to call it. You know, when you have the gateway drug, like people use marijuana as the gateway drug to lead to other things, you have this plastic straw. It's a gateway to really understanding our influence and how much we're influenced by using single-use plastics. That's how it should have been done, but there was so much focus on the plastic straw that it got out of hand. And people were getting tired with plastic straws. I remember Clubhouse was an app that I was on. It was a digital app that you could bring in. It brought communities together to have conversations. And I was covering the movie documentary Netflix, which we'll talk about Netflix in a second, called Seaspiracy. Didn't like Seaspiracy, had a lot of misinformation in it. We're going to talk about that in a second as well. But people were debating, and I remember one comment, it's etched in my mind. And people were like, I'm done with the plastic straws. We need to move on to something bigger. To say that single-use plastic and plastic pollution is not as big as, say, overfishing is not doing it justice, doing the problem justice. And yes, people get tired about thinking of the same old item when it could have been moved to single-use plastics in general and how we can really change our behavior around that. It distracted from the bigger systems, the system issues, you know, corporate plastic production, fishing gear, all this types of stuff. It really distracted to what we really wanted was the cleanup of single-use plastics, whether it's fishing gear, whether it's corporate creation of this, like chemical companies and fossil fuel companies. I think it's like 33% of the revenue that fossil fuel companies is generated by plastics. And by creating plastics, it's a petroleum product. So just imagine how much difficulty it is to get that banned or to get that reduced just in the creation. They want you to use plastic products, single use especially, because it's a good moneymaker for them. But it left people like switching to metal straws wasn't doing enough. Like it just not enough that we could really get there. So what ocean conservation is boiled down to a symbol, it risks oversimplifying the fight and disengaging people from deeper action. That's really what it comes down to. Let's take one item, oversimplify it, and let's say if you take away the plastic straw, our plastic pollutions are gone. That's not true. You can't do that. That's not what the campaign was really about. The campaign was more about our use of single-use plastics rather than the plastic straw. In fact, if that other video that Nathan recorded as he was taking the plastic straw out of the nose, if that went as viral, that might have changed the narrative in the long run because, you know, this happens all the time. Like we're seeing multiple plastic items be stuck in turtles. So if we saw 2 within 4 months, within a span of 70 kilometers on a coastline, there's probably more. You can probably estimate that there's more. I don't know how many. I mean, you still have to do a lot of studies for that, and you'd have to find them, but this happens, you know, and it's something that we need to correct, not just in sea turtles, not just plastic utensils or plastic straws, but just single-use plastics in general. That was just more of a close-up feel, and you really got the pain that sea turtle was in. The video did what it needed to do and showed that animals are suffering from plastic pollution. Unfortunately, the campaigns that came from it didn't do it justice, and it just didn't connect with people. Second thing I want to talk about is documentaries. In fact, Netflix documentaries. Now, Netflix, as I mentioned, released a documentary called Seaspiracy a number of years ago. It was during the pandemic. People talked about it. There was a lot of misinformation. Scientists didn't like it. Conservationists didn't like it. They did a lot of people dirty, let's just say. It wasn't really well done. They used really bad journalistic ethical problems in that. They just used bad practices, you know, a lot of times manipulating the conversation, leading them on to say that we're doing something but doing something else and making them look like fools. Not a good sign by this movie maker. There's an upcoming Netflix documentary, and I think it's being released in either June or July. I think it was July 4th or something like that. It's June or July. It's coming up. And it's about an influencer, an ocean influencer named Ocean Ramsey. Now, Ocean Ramsey is based out of Hawaii, and she runs an outfit that has interactions with marine animals, mostly sharks. She's known for diving with sharks. In fact, you may know her, if you don't recognize her by the name, you may know her of the woman who swam with a great white shark and actually, you know, kind of hooked onto her with her hand, hooked onto the dorsal fin and just kind of rode with this shark. Now, her intention is to show that these sharks are not the crazy eating monsters that you would expect to see from a movie like Jaws or the Megalodon or the Meg, you know, that type of shark, or it's just an eating machine. It's a monster. It wants to kill everything in its path. No, Ocean Ramsey wants to show that it's gentle. And we know that sharks are not just animals. They have behaviors, they have characteristics. Each species is different. However, they are dangerous, right? So you have to be careful of how you act around that. Ocean Ramsey is a professional shark diver. She dives with ocean white tips, tiger sharks, and so forth. She's probably had some close calls. Like, did you even see in some of her videos that she's had some close calls with a tiger shark? It was one of them that I can just think off the top of my head. But she is a professional diver. She remains calm. She knows what she's doing. A lot of the diving that I've seen is free diving, but she knows what she's doing. Whether we think she knows a lot or not, I don't know, but it looks like she knows what she's doing. She's been doing it for years, and she has a mission that she wants to protect sharks. It's beautiful storytelling, which can inspire, but sometimes misrepresent science or oversimplifying conservation efforts. So she's actually been attached to campaigns that are misrepresentation, misinformation. She's known as someone who says, hey, you know what, everybody should be swimming with sharks, or most people should be swimming with sharks. You have to be careful there. And an unintended consequence, when somebody sees her, diving like this, somebody else who does free diving or scuba diving thinks, oh, I could probably do that too if she can do it, so I'm going to do it, not realizing that there is training involved. It is a dangerous thing. And these animals, you have to know the signs that an animal is irritated, especially a shark is irritated or doesn't want to be bothered, or else you can't go near it. But if you don't know those signs and you try and go near it, that could be life and death situation. And here's the problem with that. Not only does it hurt you, but it hurts sharks. Because once somebody gets bitten by a shark that's swimming with sharks, that means people are going to go out, and just in the past what we've seen is like, oh, well, we got to kill that shark. Or how we know it's that shark? Well, we're going to take any shark that's 3 meters or more, and we're going to just kill it. If it's a tiger shark, we're going to kill all tiger sharks that are 3 meters or more for a certain amount of time, and then we'll just leave it be and let's help it. That's the management that a lot of countries are taking. Not a very good management. It doesn't happen everywhere, but that's something that you don't want to see. Right? The problem is the reputation of sharks is just starting to climb, and people are starting to feel sorry for sharks. But if they start to see people swimming with sharks getting bitten, or worse, dying from those bites, that could be a problem. So while we need more accessible and diverse and community grounded ocean stories, not just influencer style branding, which could cause problems for other people, right? Also, the rule of thumb when you dive is you don't touch, you observe. You are a guest in the ocean and you observe. You do not touch. Touching could actually cause the animal harm, depending on what you have on your hands. And this is not necessarily just for Ocean Ramsey. I don't want to send any hate towards Ocean Ramsey. I respect what she's trying to do. I don't respect the way she does it. Let's just say that. Or I don't agree with the way she does it. And I think that's an important distinction, right? There are people who are trying to do good for the ocean, and there's no agreement. Sometimes we just don't agree with the way it should be done. I don't want to send any hate. I don't want to send any malintent to her. I hope that she's safe. I hope nothing ever bad happens to her. But you're playing with fire in this situation, and then you're teaching other people to play with fire. Not that she intends to, but she teaches other. Mind you, she does teach people out on her boats when she goes on her rides to swim with sharks. That's a guided tour. Maybe she's there. She can probably, help them a little bit more and it'd be safer, but still you just never know what could happen there. So there's that influencer type. And then so far we talked about a campaign that gone wrong, that's just not connecting with people. We talk about influencer type documentaries, which is not focusing on what other people should be doing. Like, you know what I would love to see? I would love to see a documentary on Minorities in Shark Science organization, MISS. They are doing phenomenal things, teaching kids from all different types of backgrounds and women from all different types of background to go out and do ocean conservation, do shark tagging in a safe environment, and be able to inspire them to continue on their journey if they want to continue being scientists, marine scientists, doctors, whatever that might be. The trips that they hold and these educational trips that they hold and these experiences allow these women, these young women, to connect with the ocean and also inspire them to do more for the ocean and be able to follow and be inspired to follow a very difficult path to becoming a marine science and marine biologist. It's not easy for anybody, let alone a minority woman or someone from the LGBTQ community. The MISS does that. I would love to see Netflix do a documentary on this organization because it's a wonderful organization. Okay, so we've talked about those documentaries and what should be done. Now let's talk about just access to science. The way we do science and the way we share science among each other, like among scientists, is through peer-reviewed journals. And these peer-reviewed journals are a long-standing tradition of sharing information across the science world. So if I have a study that I'm doing, I do all the work to come up with the hypothesis, the methods, I do the study, I go in the field or I'm in the lab or whatever, I'm doing the data analysis, I come up with the results, I come up with a conclusion, and then I basically take that and I put it into a manuscript and I send it in to the journal articles that I think would be best suited for this paper that I've done. And then it gets reviewed, like the magazine gets it or the journal gets it. They send it to 2 to 3 reviewers. They review it. They send it back with their comments. You change based on those comments, and then you resubmit, and then it gets published. The only problem is these are not free. They're not freely available. They may be freely available for students who are in universities or part of academic institutions who pay the hundreds and thousands of dollars for access to these journal articles. But other than that, it's basically $40 US a paper if I wanted to buy it. I'm not associated with any academic institution. So if I wanted a paper, I could go to the author directly and say, hey, can I get access to this paper? I'm doing a story. A lot of times they do. Authors always want to share their papers. But other than that, if I didn't know how to contact the author and they weren't able to share it with me, I would have to pay 30 or 40 bucks US to just get access to one paper. Now think about all the stuff that I cover. It's just not in my budget to be able to do this, right? So imagine like a fellow scientist can't get access to normal articles. Now imagine somebody who wants to protect the ocean. Not only is it difficult for them to read because they're not a trained scientist, so some of the jargon, some of the statistical analysis, they may or may not understand, but also it's not really available because it costs money to get access to it. So not only is it just not like available to the general populations, but it's also not available to most managers. And that's why preprints are a thing, and that's why open access is a thing, which I'll go into another time. But again, it just goes to show that it's really difficult to get access to cutting edge research. And it's really difficult to get it to the people, just furthering that disconnect between ocean conservation and science and the general public, right? We want the general public to engage with us. You know, there's a lot of science involved in engaging the general public to change their behavior or to get on this thought process or theory to say, hey, we need to support this and to talk to their government representative and this. But it's so disconnected that we need people in the middle of the scientists to translate it, to get access to it, to translate it and get it to the public in their own type of way. And there are full degrees on this. Like talk about behavioral marketing, you talk about conservation marketing and marketing in general, psychology and all this kind of stuff where there are professionals who do this, but just the raw access. So if somebody wanted access to these papers, it's very difficult to get a hold of, which doesn't help in the connection to conservation. So just like, why does this exist? Why does this disconnect exist? And the system just wasn't built for public engagement. It was built for research policy and academic credit, right? Ocean conservation often speaks to people, but not with people, right? It's always telling you what you need to do, but doesn't tell you how to help. And the public is expected to care without being equipped to understand or act meaningfully. Right? I talk to people all the time about ocean conservation. People will ask me, like, Andrew, where are we at with ocean conservation? And a lot of times we are in a difficult spot. And I tell them ways that they can participate, ways that they can do things, and it makes them feel a little hopeful. But if I don't tell them that part, if I just tell them like, hey, this research said this, or this is what's happening here, and this is what's happening here, they get pretty depressed after they talk to me. It's not fun after people talk to me for certain things, but that's why I try and bring that hope. I'm like, oh, wait, but there's this like citizens of the reef and the Great Barrier Reef that are contributing towards, and you can help, that are contributing towards data management in the Great Barrier Reef. Or we have, you know, a company like Follow where you can buy a bracelet. I don't have them on right now, but you can buy a bracelet and you can track a whale shark, or you can track a dolphin, or you can track a manatee, or even a sloth if you want to do wild things, which I think is crazy to track a sloth because they're so slow, but it'd be really interesting to see where they go, or a penguin and things like that. And it's ways to engage people. And those are the companies and those are the people and the organizations that really do well, because they offer a form of citizen science to get people involved. They can track an animal. They can really care for that animal. They get profiles and so forth. They can look at a reef and look at different parts of the Great Barrier Reef through Citizens of the Reef and be able to participate in gathering data for them and making sure that it's accurate. Right? And during that time, they can see different parts of the Great Barrier Reef that they will probably never be able to see on a regular basis unless they live near it or go diving on it. And even then, I bet you not many people have seen the entire Great Barrier Reef, even the researchers that work there or the tourists that work there. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of hope, and there are a lot of solutions to this, but we really need to stop this disconnect just on the raw basis, right? We need to start connecting more and understand what people want. Try not to oversimplify things, but try and make it so it's interesting to the people. Allow them to participate, right? Involve them in the process. It's just like when we do conservation for marine protected areas, or we have to bring people in from the beginning. Follow them along. There's some great scientists out there who are posting on social media who are showing the work that they've done either through their PhD or they're doing a study, and they're out in the field and they're showing what they're doing, they're explaining what they've done, and then once the study is done and they're published and everything like that, they go through another campaign of what they're able to accomplish, and people are interested. They're vested in watching that. It's like edutainment at its best, and I want to see more of that. I feel like professors and supervisors should be not just on the academic side, but supervisors on the government side or even on the nonprofit organizations. I should be encouraging people to talk about their work on a podcast or in a video or on a TikTok or an Instagram reel, whatever that might be. Share your information. It's time that we stop hiding everything. It's time that we be transparent like we should have been from the beginning and connect with people about the ocean conservation that they can help with and that they can take part in. That is what we really need to do. We need to get people to support open science. We need to get people to demand better storytelling, and don't settle for feel-good symbols. Get curious about the bigger picture. That's what we need. I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you want to participate in something, you want to learn more about the ocean and know the ocean, hit us up. Go to speakupforblue.com/join the undertow. It's a community that we're building. We haven't released it yet, but it's coming, and I promise you, you are going to love it. We're going to do talks a couple times a month, like virtual talks. We're going to do in-person talks. We're going to have connection service. It's going to be amazing, and it's all going to be about the ocean. Speakupforblue.com/join the undertow. I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin from the True North Strong and Free. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.